Hi, I'm Bob. Welcome back to the solutions to the exercises for the textbook Microeconomics, Theory and Applications with Calculus, the 5th edition. Today, we will finish the last two questions in the tax and monopoly section, and then start to solve the problems about the causes of monopolies. Let's solve exercise 3.6. What is the effect of a lump sum tax on a monopoly? I assume the monopoly has a constant marginal cost and faces a linear demand. The lump sum tax does not affect the monopoly's marginal revenue curve or marginal cost curve. The monopoly optimum E is unchanged. The profit maximizing output and price are the same. The lump sum tax increases the firm's fixed cost and shifts the average cost curve upwards. Suppose the long-run average cost is less than the price at the monopoly quantity before the tax, but greater after the tax. The monopoly makes a positive profit before the lump sum tax, but a negative profit after. It will shut down if that lump sum tax is imposed. Let's go to exercise 3.7. In the figure, show the effect of an ad valorem tax on the monopoly optimum, consumer surplus, producer surplus, welfare, and deadweight loss. The ad valorem tax rotates the demand curve from D1 to D2. Before the tax, the marginal cost curve MC and the marginal revenue curve MR1 determine the monopoly quantity Q1. The inverse demand determines the monopoly price P1. The monopoly optimum before the tax is E1. After the tax, the monopoly optimum is E2, where the monopoly quantity is Q2 and the monopoly price is P2. I summarize the consumer surplus, the producer surplus, and the tax revenue in the table. The before-tax consumer surplus is the triangle BP1E1. The after-tax consumer surplus is the triangle GP2E2. It drops. The before-tax producer surplus is the rectangle P1 O E1 E1. The after-tax producer surplus is the rectangle P2 O E2 E2. It also decreases. Before the ad valorem tax, the deadweight loss is the triangle E1 E1 C. After the tax, the deadweight loss will be higher than the triangle DE2C. The deadweight loss increases after the tax. Let's jump to 11.4, the causes of monopolies. Here is exercise 4.1. Can a firm be a natural monopoly if it has a U-shaped average cost curve? Why or why not? The firm can be a natural monopoly. As the graph shows, if the total market output is lower than the Q bar, it is in the downward sloping part of the average cost curve. The firm is a natural monopoly because its average cost decreases as output increases for the entire market output. On the other hand, if the total market output exceeds the Q bar, the firm may not become a natural monopoly because it may produce all the market output at a higher cost than several firms. Let's solve exercise 4.2. Can a firm operating in the upward sloping portion of its average cost curve be a natural monopoly? Explain. No, a natural monopoly's average cost curve should be downward sloping for all output levels. Let's solve exercise 4.3. In the application, the Botox pattern monopoly, what would happen to the monopoly optimal price and quantity if the government had collected a specific tax of $75 per vial of Botox? What welfare effects would such a tax have? Suppose the specific tax is imposed on the producer. It shifts the firm's marginal cost curve upwards by $75. The new marginal cost function is P equals 100. The firm still faces a linear demand. Its marginal revenue is P equals 775 minus 750 times Q. We can solve for the monopoly optimal quantity, 0.9 million, and price, $437.5. Compared to the case without tax in the textbook, the tax reduces monopoly output and increases monopoly price. Next, we consider the welfare change. The blue area is the consumer surplus. The yellow area is the producer surplus, and the green area is the tax revenue. The red area is the deadweight loss. We can summarize the welfare effect of the tax. The tax reduces the consumer surplus and the producer surplus. The government collects the tax revenue, but the social welfare, the sum of consumer surplus, producer surplus, and tax revenue, drops. The deadweight loss rises with the tax. The above is assuming the tax is imposed on the producer. If we assume the tax is applied to the consumers, it shifts the inverse demand curve downwards by the amount of the tax. We can obtain the same result. Let's see exercise 4.4. In the application, the Botox pattern monopoly, consumer surplus area A equals the deadweight loss area C. Show that this equality is a result of the linear demand and constant marginal cost assumptions. Suppose the linear inverse demand function is P equals A minus B times Q. We can write the marginal revenue function directly. Suppose the constant marginal cost function is P equals C. At the monopoly profit maximizing output Q star, marginal revenue equals marginal cost. We solve for the Q star. After we obtain the optimum quantity, we substitute it into the inverse demand curve to find the monopoly price. Then we can calculate the consumer surplus and debt rate loss. We find that they are identical. The above is the mathematical proof. We can also see it intuitively from the graph. The firm's marginal revenue curve is also linear for any linear inverse demand curve. It cuts any horizontal line in the middle. For the blue triangle, the consumer surplus, and the red triangle, the debt rate loss, they have the same base and the same height. So these two areas are the same. Let's find answers to exercise 4.5. Once the copyright runs out on a book or musical composition, the work can legally be posted on the internet for anyone to download. Discuss how limiting the length of copyright would affect the pricing used by the publisher of a novel. Before the copyright runs out, the monopoly will charge a monopoly price to maximize its profit. After the copyright runs out, the price will drop to the marginal cost level. The firm will lose its marginal power and charge a competitive price. Thank you so much for solving all the exercises with me today. See you tomorrow. Take care. Thank you for watching this video and subscribing to my YouTube channel. See you next time.